Welcome back. For today's Business Matters, we have Don Ma here with us. Don, how you doing?
Doing well. How about you guys?
Pretty good.
I'm doing good. Looking forward to your segment today.
All right.
Also, it's Friday.
Yep, definitely is. Happy about that.
What do you have for us?
All right, so the head of the Federal Aviation Administration is set to update senators on investigations into Boeing. In 2 weeks, a Senate subcommittee will hold a hearing titled FAA Oversight of Boeing's Broken Safety Culture. FAA Administrator Michael Whitaker told reporters on Wednesday that he thinks Boeing's road to recovery will be a long one. After the door plug blowout in January, Whitaker told Boeing that it had to submit a quality improvement plan. He barred the plane maker from producing more 737 MAX aircraft. An FAA audit found that Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems did not meet quality control standards, and Spirit supplies fuselages and other parts for Boeing. In June, Whitaker told the Senate committee that the FAA was too focused on paperwork audits and not focused enough on inspections at Boeing. Meanwhile, there's a good chance that you're just spending too much on housing, especially if you rent. New Census Bureau data shows nearly half of all renters do that. It's called being cost burdened, and it's defined by spending more than 30% of your income to pay for your home. The rising cost of real estate has been a topic of national concern for years now, but rent is now rising more than twice as fast as home prices. Last year, it went up 3.8%, as opposed to home values, which went up 1.8%. Now, the Biden administration today implemented steep tariff hikes on Chinese imports. The measures include a 100% tax on electric vehicles. The White House says the tariffs will strengthen protections for strategic domestic industries from Chinese production. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative said the taxes include a 100% duty on Chinese EVs, as well as 50% on solar cells, 25% on steel, aluminum, EV batteries, and key minerals. So the agency is saying that the tariffs will go into effect on September 27th, and a 50% tax on Chinese semiconductors will start in 2025. So China argues that its EV industry's success is due to innovation and not government control. Beijing has promised retaliation against the tariffs. Also, the Biden administration is moving close to a trade loophole being closed with China in mind. Chinese e-commerce companies have been evading U.S. tariffs by shipping directly to American consumers. That's by taking advantage of a trade rule called de minimis. So under this, packages shipped directly from foreign countries to the U.S. to U.S. consumers don't have to pay any duty or very little. So if the packages are valued less than $800, that is. Chinese e-commerce such as Shein and Temu have been utilizing this rule. Illegal shipment of fentanyl also slipped through the cracks under this rule. So over 1 billion packages came to the U.S. last year under this rule, most of them from China. That marks an over 600% increase from a decade ago. So the administration would strip that exemption for certain products that would affect over 40% of U.S. imports and 70% of Chinese textile and apparel imports. Shein and Temu said that de minimis is not essential for their success. Temu's parent company shares went down over 5% after the White House announcement. Biden's move comes after over 100 House Democrats urged him to take action on the de minimis rule. Lawmakers from both sides have proposed bills to bring changes. Importers, FedEx and UPS are against the changes proposed. They say it would lead to tax increases on consumers. The rule was put in place to allow Americans to bring back souvenirs bought overseas duty-free, but retailers like Amazon and Walmart are also taking advantage of it. In 2020, de minimis imports rose to over $67 billion. Now moving on here. During the presidential debate, candidate Kamala Harris claimed that Goldman Sachs said Donald Trump's plan will make the economy worse and hers will strengthen it. But the bank's CEO has pushed back on that. He said the report in question came from an independent analyst. He also said that Harris overstated the results of the report. Here he is with CNBC.
What the report did is it looked at a handful of policy issues that have been put out by both sides, and it tried to model their impact on GDP growth. And the reason I say a bigger deal's been made of it is what it showed is the difference between the sets of policies that they put forward was about 0.2%.
During the interview, the same one that is, Solomon pointed out that the national debt was not mentioned at all during the debate. But it is something that will need to be addressed by any upcoming administrations, he says. Joining us now is Vijay Marolia. He's the founder and CIO at RP Capital Solutions. Vijay, always great to have you. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, and thanks again for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well. So let me ask you this. At what point could the debt pose a real threat to the economy, right? To investor sentiment, or perhaps the dollar's dominance as a reserve currency?
I think yesterday, basically, I don't mean to be flippant, Don, but I think that it's already started. And that's why it should be scarier than a lot of people are making it seem. It needs to be a high alert. And the reason is, we know that the most powerful force is exponential growth, and our debt is exploding. We're bragging about the inflation rate coming down, even though the cost of living continues to go up. And the money is going towards not production. It's going towards waste and fraud, and it's going towards, let's call it, unproductive programs.
So you say the impact has already been seen before. You said yesterday, to be precise. But we're seeing investors still purchasing U.S. Treasury. So maybe at least the sentiment hasn't changed.
Right. So I guess what I'm talking about more of is that the rest of the world, the other global powers, are starting to understand that, wait a minute, the U.S. dollar has kind of pigeonholed us to a certain extent. And until and unless we figure out a way to not use as many US dollars and use other global currencies or other digital assets or other hard assets or other programs, we're not going to be able to escape that control. And so if you look at India, Russia, China, the Middle East, they're already trying to and already in the process of getting away from the dollar. So you're not seeing it right now because the dollar is still the world's global currency. It's the safest asset. It's liquid. You could spend it anywhere. But 5-10 years from now, it might not be the only one that can say that.
All right. As an investor, which sectors do you think will be most impacted by the debt and interest payments?
I think ultimately the debt is going to just cause more inflation. And that's what kind of concerns me, Don, because inflation is the thing that's kind of erasing the middle class, and it's creating a society of the haves and the have-nots. The haves have assets. The inflation will push up the value of those assets. The have-nots just have bills. And sadly, because they don't own assets, their bills are just going to rise faster than their wages. And that's what we have to fix. The only two ways to fix that is through early financial literacy, so education. And then we got to stop printing all this money, and we got to stop spending it so we don't need to print as much.
So here's the reality. If the U.S. debt is left unchecked, the interest on it could become the largest expense for the U.S. one day. So my question to you is, have we already gotten ourselves trapped in a debt spiral where we're just borrowing to service the existing debt?
Don, once again, you hit the nail on the head. That is my concern. That is why we own precious metals, why we own Bitcoin, why we own Ether, why we own businesses that are basically software platforms that are they're not limited by the laws of physics. They're not limited by scale. They're not bricks and mortar. Now, here's the thing. I'm not anti bricks and mortar. You know, my father made his livelihood by building bricks and mortar. We still develop. We still invest in bricks and mortar. But as a business, software is eating the world. And so to deny that is to approach death.
Okay, just about 30 seconds. Do you see any likely scenarios for U.S. debt management?
Man, I really wish I had something better to end on. No, I don't. And that's the sad thing. But here's what I do see. Let me end on a positive thing. I really hope that the election that's coming up is going to force people to do a little bit of math. I know that math is not fun for everybody like it is for me, but you got to do it. How about this? The U.S. government spent in August enough to pay every voter about $8,000 in that month. What would you do with that $8,000? Do you think the government did a good job with it? That's the question you got to ask yourself.
All right, VJ, thanks for the discussion today.
Thank you, man.
All right, moving on from that. The heaviest punishment yet for international accounting firms operating in China. So Chinese authorities slapped a more than $62 million fine on accounting firm PwC. And this is over its auditing of Evergrande, which is China's most indebted developer. Now, PwC will be banned from signing off on any financial results in China for half a year. Already, it's losing clients. China's finance ministry said PwC issued false audit reports of Evergrande and that the audit procedures had serious defects. So in a statement, PwC said the work performed by its audit team with Evergrande was completely unacceptable and that its Chinese branch has cooperated fully with regulators. PwC came under Beijing scrutiny after Evergrande collapsed in January. Authorities said that Evergrande inflated its mainland Chinese revenue by almost $80 billion. PwC had audited Evergrande's accounts for 14 years until 2023 and gave it a clean bill of health. Now, shares of tech giant Supermicro are up 3.5% today, but they're also down almost 20% since the middle of August. The company was hit with another lawsuit this week. Again, it's accused of accounting manipulation. Supermicro rejected similar accusations included in a short seller report last month. Here are the details.
Shares of IT company Supermicro are down almost 20% since August 17th, when short seller Hindenburg Research accused the firm of accounting malpractice. Supermicro called the allegations misleading, but it did pause the scheduled filing of a financial report. It said it wanted to first assess the effectiveness of its financial controls. NTD has reached out to Supermicro multiple times, but hasn't received a response. Former Supermicro executive Bob Long is suing the company. He says that after he discovered misleading accounting practices, Supermicro fired him.
He became a victim of Supermicro when he tried to raise complaints. The message that's being sent, like, you raise red flags and you're going to be sent home.
Long's attorney, Tanya Gomerman, says Supermicro didn't investigate the complaints. Long alleges Supermicro tried to raise its revenue numbers in dishonest ways. He says it recorded incomplete sales as revenue, shipped faulty products, and shifted revenue numbers between business units. He says this was to make it look like Supermicro was selling more than it actually was. Long says he wants to take Supermicro to federal court. In federal court, he can make his evidence public. But according to court documents,
Supermicro is attempting to push this case into arbitration. Out of the public eye, nothing is filed publicly, and nobody is going to be able to find everything out.
If that happens, it's likely less information will be made public. A district court hearing on September 26 may determine how the case will proceed.
Now, factory workers of the aviation company Boeing have gone on strike for the first time since 2008 after rejecting a new labor contract offer. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, has more on this story.
94% of over 30,000 members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers of the Boeing Company, its largest unionized group of workers, voted Thursday night to reject the new labor contract and go on strike.
Strike! 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 Strike!
Our members voted across Puget Sound, Portland, Moses Lake, Victorville, Edwards Air Force Base, and other remote locations. This is about respect. This is about addressing the past, and this is about fighting for our future.
We've been working like dogs, long hours, busting our ass at Boeing. And let me tell you what, Boeing's a good company, right? They're a good company, but it has to work both ways. It can't just be one way. That's right.
The Boeing company issued a statement saying that they remain committed to resetting their relationship with their employees and the union and are ready to get back to the table to reach a new agreement. The Boeing company offered workers a 25% wage increase in the new labor contract, but the unionized workers are demanding 40%.
So far, what I've seen here is a lot of strong power with our union. A lot of the members are pretty upset about our first offer. We're hoping that the second offer is what we're looking for. If not, we're just going to keep going against them, and we're going to keep striking and standing for ourselves.
The strike comes as the FAA director is set to testify before the Senate on the safety culture of the Boeing company. And this week, Boeing's Starliner capsule made its uncrewed return to Earth from the International Space Station after a malfunction grounded its crew back in June. Industry analysts estimate that a 30-day strike would cost the Boeing company $1.5 billion in losses. The last time that Boeing workers went on a strike was in 2008, and it lasted for 2 months. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Meanwhile, a strike could be next in the auto industry. Leaders of the United Auto Workers Union have threatened to strike against Stellantis, the owners of Jeep and Dodge. In their latest contract, Stellantis pledged to reopen a facility in Belvidere, Illinois. Those plans have now been delayed over what the company calls unfavorable market conditions. As reported poor sales and earnings this year, the union and its workers are concerned that if Stellantis would break this agreement, it would break another. Stellantis said that it stands by its commitment to open Belvidere, but it needs time so it can stay competitive and preserve U.S. jobs. Now, connecting at a cruising altitude, United Airlines has teamed up with Elon Musk's Starlink company to provide in-flight Wi-Fi. In a press release, United says consumers will be able to enjoy the same high-speed internet service in the air that they do on the ground. The service is expected to be more reliable over the ocean and in more remote areas. The airline said that it plans to outfit its entire fleet with Starlink's internet service. Testing is set to start as early as next year, with the service offered on the first passenger flight later that year. And United said the service will be free. Now, alarm bells over retail theft appeared to have gone silent. Shoplifting was such a big problem a year ago that locations were closing, merchandise was being locked up, and companies were declaring big losses. Data shows mentions of retail shrink or inventory loss, not from a sale, have shrunk in the first part of the year. Shrink may be improving for a number of reasons: improved merchandise accounting, preventative measures like removing self-checkout stations, and more support from many local state governments. But some retail analysts suggest that companies overestimated the issue to hide other problems. Now, leftover money in 529 college funds can now be moved into retirement accounts. This is new territory. The law took effect last year. It allows unused 529 funds to be transferred into Roth IRAs tax-free with certain limits. Some restrictions include that the 529 account must be at least 15 years old, and no rollover can come from contributions in the last 5 years. The rollover amount cannot exceed $35,000 per beneficiary. So if someone has several 529 accounts, say, for example, for each child, they could have a $35,000 limit for each one. So rollover recipients also face other requirements that generally apply to Roth IRAs. So no IRS guidance yet on switching account beneficiary and what that does for a 15-year time limit. And today in entertainment news, a Star Wars icon returns. Take a look.
The greatest hero of all time, Luke Skywalker. Let me see if I have this right. In your galaxy, my dad is mostly evil until he turns good for like 5 minutes and then dies. My own nephew betrays me and kills most of my best friends.
Mark Hamill returns as Luke Skywalker in Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. A cosmic accident scrambles the galaxy in the animated adventure. The 4-episode special event launches Friday on Disney+.
And it's Friday the 13th, and Krispy Kreme is giving donut lovers, they're giving them some glazed Lucky Charms. So to celebrate the day known for being unlucky, the chain is offering a dozen donuts for just 13 cents. Customers who buy any dozen donuts or 16-count minis at regular price can buy a dozen original glazed donuts for just 13 cents. The offer is being made for in-store or online orders. If you go online, use the promo code 13. All right, quickly, markets, strong finish for the week for U.S. stocks. In fact, S&P and NASDAQ just enjoyed their best week of the year. S&P up 0.5%, Dow Jones up 0.7%, and the NASDAQ is up around 0.6%. Warner Brothers up another 10% today. It signed a new distribution deal with Charter yesterday. All right, with that, all the stories for today's Business Matters. Back to you guys, Chris, Fiona.
You know, Don, that Lego Star Wars miniseries might be pretty interesting. I saw one of these Lego movies, I think it was like a Lego Batman movie, and I thought it would just be, you know, a cute kids movie made of Legos, but it's actually very clever and kind of hilarious.
Yeah, Lego movies are known for that. Personally, I have seen many of the Star Wars movies and TV series, so for me, I would give it a look when it comes out, the miniseries, yeah.
Yeah, for anybody who's into Star Wars, it's interesting because it comes after the 9-film Star Wars saga, and it sort of explores what could come after that, but in a sort of hilarious way, I guess. You know, Luke Skywalker is in this alternative universe, and Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord. He turns evil somehow.
Yeah, for Star Wars fans, we all know what Chris is talking about, but for others...
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to admit, I am not a big fan of either Star Wars or Lego, really, so I can't add much to this conversation.
Are you a fan of Krispy Kreme?
I am a fan of Krispy Kreme. I would indeed like to try this deal.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, take advantage of that deal.
All right. I'm kind of sad we didn't get any today.
Maybe after work.
All right, Don, thank you.
Thanks.